Hello.
Good evening, Graham.
Hello, Charles.
Good evening, Anthony, with a big thumbs up. Sunday night, heading off to Paloma Faith at York Barbican tonight.
Oh
So,
dear.
did you say, oh dear?
Yeah, I'm not a massive fan. I mean, she's obviously quite talented, but yeah.
Have faith, Graham. Have a little bit more faith.
Nice one, Charles.
So, Graham, welcome on a Sunday night. You are Graham Chalmers. How would you describe yourself?
Harrogate Advertiser, chair music events and magazine, Harrogate National Festival fringe organizer for 3 years. Always busy, been doing this a million years, but still absolutely love it. And I know a lot.
Absolutely love it, and I know a lot. Well, I can't really compete with that.
Yeah, but
I'm
so do
Charles
you.
Hutchinson. I'm plain speaking, and I'm a Yorkshireman, and I like plain speaking as well, and but not so plain writing. A little bit more elaborate than that, I think, and I've been doing that for a very long time. On the arts and culture world,
Yep.
for the York Press, for the
Yep.
Charles Hutch Press and website, for
You're too
various.
modest, Charles.
Say again,
Charles,
Graham?
you're too modest. You have interviewed and written about the cream of Yorkshire arts right across the genre list
Yeah,
for nearly 40 years. So
this is
you've
true.
met and know everybody.
But I think your point about loving it is the key, Graham.
Mm.
I think that's the to me that's the essence. I think if one lost that sense of loving it, it becomes futile. And actually, the great thing is there's always something new and stimulating to write about, or to discuss on the podcast, or to reflect on the radio, or whatever. That is the great joy of the arts world. It keeps
I
giving
agree.
challenging propositions to us, and
And
glory
it
be
keeps
that that is the
changing.
case.
It keeps on changing. There's always new things and
Yeah,
new things happening. And
yeah.
somebody once said to me that the problem with you, Graham, is you'd review anything, even a carpet. And I paused for a minute and I thought, actually, they've got a point. So I said, yeah, you're right. I would review a carpet.
Good flight or not, Graham? Magic carpet, absolutely. Well, see, I mean, we feel like this now. I wonder how David Remfry, for example, feels. David is now 81 years old. You're calling
Mm.
him Britain's coolest artist. He's got a
He
brilliant
was
new
such.
exhibition in Harrogate.
Oh yeah. Well,
And
he's such
tell
a
me
cool
which
dude.
gallery, first of all, Graham?
At Mercer Gallery,
At the
Harrogate's
Mercer
only
Gallery, public gallery. Yeah.
publicly owned. So traditionally, publicly owned galleries can be slightly boring, especially in a town rather than a city like Harrogate is.
Mm,
So, but it always brings above its weight. The Mercer Gallery's had nothing but great exhibitions for the last 15 years or more. It's just
mm,
sensational.
mm,
And I turned up on Friday for the launch at Mercer Gallery in Harrogate, and
mm.
because I'm too busy these days to actually too much preparation about anything, I walked straight in the gallery and straight into this guy dressed in a very dapper black and white suit with a black hat,
Yeah.
looking very cool. Not exactly young, but looking very cool. And I just walked up to him and said hello. I started telling him what I thought of the paintings, and it turned out that was David Remfry. And I didn't even know. So fortunately, we got on well, and he was such a nice guy and so intelligent, and also he was so cool. He's the coolest old bloke I've ever met or seen
Yeah.
since I saw Leonard Cohen playing at the First Direct Arena in Leeds. He was just
Mm.
you wouldn't have thought he was 81. You know, I thought he was like 60 or in his 50s. And the exhibition itself is fantastic. It's
So, how did the
really, really
exhibition
good.
come about?
Well, I don't actually know, except that he's got a great reputation. He exhibits around the world, has done for a long time.
Mm.
And I do know that the Mercer has established links with, the National Gallery and
Yeah.
all the big artistic institutions in London. So although it's a town, it's very much not provincial anymore. So I suspect it's come from that really, and it's well run as well. So it wasn't a surprise that the exhibition was great because they've been doing great exhibitions ever since Jane Sellers was in charge and used to get mentioned on BBC Radio 4 and written about in the Times. And in fact, the Times critic turned up on Friday. That tells you how
Mm.
good David Remfry is, and it tells you how well respected the Mercer Gallery in Harrogate is that the Times turned up at
Yeah,
the launch.
absolutely. So, what's the exhibition title and what's the exhibition theme?
Well, it's called "We Think the World of You," and bizarrely, it's a series of portraits of a man or a woman sitting with their pet dog. So it's basically people with dogs. So you think on paper this sounds like, a right sort of hackneyed, cliched sort of thing, but when you actually see what David's done, it's like looking at a Hockney exhibition. There's quite a lot of similarities in style to Hockney
because thought you might say that.
Yeah, and it's a mix of sort of like sketch, David Hockney precision sketching, with the use of one or two bold colors. There's very few of the paintings have more than two colors. There's a few with three, and so you get maximum impact from the color, and you get the focus on the gorgeous line drawing of the person with the dog. And even the small portraits of individual dogs are just exquisite. No wonder he's in the Royal Academy. No wonder he's so famous. He's absolutely brilliant, David Remfry. I was massively impressed because I'm not a dog fan. I have no interest in dogs whatsoever.
Well, Picasso and Hockney, both fans of Dachshunds, and both have painted Dachshunds, sausage dogs.
Easy for you to say.
As well as both always wearing Breton striped tops. And of course, in the case of Hockney, of course, Salt's Diner in the 1853 gallery has the Hockney dog, of course, as its motif. So
that's right.
The significance of the hound. So now, how much? I mean, they do say that dogs, dog owners look like their dogs. Does this break away from that stereotype?
Completely, because his artistic style is consistent throughout the exhibition, and there's a lot of paintings. It's quite a big exhibition. But although the style is consistent, the character and feeling is completely individualistic, i.e., he renders the face and the position and the atmosphere of the person absolutely brilliantly. They really come alive as people. And the same with the dogs. So it's not schematic. Each painting works completely and works on its own. And it's just fantastic. And because David has lived in the famous Chelsea Hotel in New York for 25 years or more.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Some of these sitters are famous people like Ethan Hawke, Susan Sarandon, Alan Cummings. So some are people you've never seen before. And then suddenly you're looking at other painting and, oh, a minute, that's Ethan Hawke. So David was telling me about the Chelsea Hotel. I said, well, I assumed that the Chelsea Hotel, which became famous in the 60s, partly through Andy Warhol's film Chelsea Girls, a centre of like bohemianism and debauchery and weirdness and anything goes, laissez-faire. I said, I assumed it had become Disney-fied and boring years ago. And he said, no. Most of the time I've been there, it's exactly the same as it was in the 60s. Yeah. It's a real strange bunch of characters. He says, but recently it's been bought by someone wealthy. And he said, the character's starting to go, so I decided to leave.
Yeah. So where's he based now?
I didn't ask him that. Like any good journalist, always leave him wanting more.
Quite right, Graham. And also, it can be a little intrusive to ask that question. So, in terms of his legacy, I mean, an artist. I mean, obviously not on a Hockney scale of being well known, but if you're calling him Britain's coolest artist, Graham, that's some accolade.
Well, he's the paintings of the sitters and their dogs. They're just so effortlessly cool. He makes being brilliant, technically brilliant, with perfect good taste, look like the easiest thing in the world. And when he's standing there amid his own exhibition, dressed in a black and white suit and the black hat, and a very slim bloke, he looks like a really cool member of the Specials. He could be on stage playing bass guitar and looking like the coolest guy in the whole band. And so when you see him with his own paintings, you just think, wow, this is exceedingly cool. And the guy's 81. And he's painting dogs.
Did you ask him if he had a dog? Did you ask him if he had a dog? No,
I don't ask cliched questions, Charles.
I'm asking the cliched questions here because I thought I would. I just thought, dogged determination of the journalist to get this out, but fair enough. So, Graham, just tell me when this exhibition is running until.
Oh, there you go. I don't even know that one. Yeah, I checked the press release that I
Good
received about a
advice.
couple of weeks ago.
Excellent
And
advice.
it didn't mention it. It didn't mention when it ran to. But I'm assuming this
Ah,
goes right through the summer because
okay, but
it's too good
let's hope
not
so.
to. But
Yeah.
it's also running with a small Harrogate exhibition of a lost Harrogate artist called
Yeah.
Eva Leigh, who started painting local people, the great and the good, and her neighbours in the 1920s, and carried on for decades. And they're absolutely sensational. And they were lying dormant in the basement vaults of Mercer Gallery,
Huh?
having been donated to the gallery at various points over many years. And they've gone through the whole vaults to find all the best ones, and they're really brilliant portraits of different people from the
So are
20s and
those
the
works
60s.
for sale, having been
I didn't.
rediscovered?
I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think they belong to the
They'll keep them as a
Mercer
Mercer Gallery
collection.
collection. Yeah.
On top of that, some of them have been donated by local collectors who've owned them for years. So I bumped into
Ah, okay.
Harrogate couple who
What about
don't own
David's
some.
work? Is that for sale?
I didn't see it being for sale. I don't think he's
No.
the sort of guy who needs to do that sort of thing.
No.
Certainly not the Mercer Gallery in Harrogate. He's not. He
No,
hasn't
it's
come to the
Graham.
Mercer
Very
to flog some
very wealthy
paintings.
town, Harrogate. You know.
Well, yeah, no, but I think David does all right.
Yeah,
I don't think he needs,
sure he
you know,
does. I
yeah.
feel it's time for an interruption before we come on to. Well, we're going to come on to another exhibition, but let's have an interruption first, Graham, if we may.
Just a warning for listeners, because I know our listeners in the 28 countries where the podcast is downloaded. I know they all know that I look after them and keep them safe. So just a warning that there's a new Ed Sheeran album. And when I say new, I mean like it's a re-released album.
It's a 10th
Is it?
anniversary, Graham.
Yeah, it's the 10th anniversary of X. And the alarming thing is the new version has more tracks. I mean,
Have you heard
why
what the
would you
new
want
version's
more?
called, Graham?
Why would you want more Ed Sheeran tracks? But
Exactly.
no,
Do
what's
you
it
know
called?
Do you know what the new version's called?
Is it called Elon Musk is going to sue me because I've called it X?
That's the one. It's now called Twitter. That's it. Correct. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, I must admit, I can't. I can wait as long as possible to not hear this one. I think, obviously, so that's coming out, and XYZ. I think it is. I think that's the reissue on the triple CD.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we were touching on.
Interestingly, I've
Yeah.
had a go recently at Taylor Swift for just not writing songs which are brilliantly memorable or brilliant pop songs. And also, I've mentioned in passing on this podcast that she always co-writes. She very rarely writes her songs herself. And I didn't mean that as a general, I didn't mean that as a specific insult of Taylor Swift, because
No.
Ed Sheeran almost is a co-writer. Jake Bugg almost always is a co-writer. Even Newton Faulkner, that I failed to interview the other week, usually is a co-writer. So it's not a sexism thing. Most big pop stars these days tend to co-write, usually with a producer. Not always, but usually. In fact, I think Brian Shatton of Fontaine's DC, his solo album last year, Chaos for the Fly, I think he co-wrote that with Dan Carey, the producer and musician.
And of course,
so yeah,
this week we've seen the passing of Steve. Steve, I never know if it's Albini or Albani, but anyway, age
Albini.
61.
I always call him Albini.
Albini.
Yeah.
And of course, I mean, he's not just been as a producer, but often influential, rather more than that, in the albums that he worked on. I mean, sometimes, yeah, that relationship is much more collaborative than just actually twiddling the knobs.
That's entirely true. But then again, the producer's job isn't to twiddle the knobs. That's the engineer's job. The producer's job is to deliver the best out of the act for the label that's going to put the record out, and whatever that takes to make the act do the best it can possibly do. If that means like suggesting musical things and how to treat the song, change the tempo, add different instruments, that's what the producer does.
I mean, that can be as much being like a psychiatrist, reading the mind of the writer and how they are, but also reading the mind of the public as well as to what might work. Actually, I mean, and it's a management role as well, a complicated role.
Well, yeah, you also have to be a people person to be a great producer, unless of course you're so big that you can afford to boss the acts around a bit like Phil Spector.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you really need to be a people person. You need to be able to read the room and fit in and get on with the musicians.
Absolutely. So, Graham, I know we're going heavy on exhibitions this week, but I think it's significant, the exhibition that opened, actually likewise to you, opened on the one that opened in Harrogate. The one in York is at York Art Gallery. York Art Gallery was chosen by the National Gallery to be one of only 12 galleries to participate in the National Gallery's bicentenary program. And the way it works is that it's reckoned that half the population will live within, I think it's a 35-mile radius of one of the 12 galleries. So in Yorkshire, York Art Gallery is the only one. And at the centerpiece for each of the exhibitions is what would be considered a masterpiece from the National Gallery collection. In the case of York, it's Claude Monet's The Water Lily Pond, painted in 1899 at Giverny, where he took up residence and created the most beautiful gardens. How many gardeners do you think he had, Graham?
10.
Not far wrong. He had 8 gardeners. And what do you think some of their tasks involved?
I would thought they had to clean every blade of grass to get it just right.
Not quite right. They had to clean every single. They had to clean every single water lily to make sure that the water lilies were in perfect condition.
Well, exactly.
So I'm not suggesting that's the that's an artistic ego that's gone rampant, because I think that would be unfair. That is maybe the perfectionism, but also the love of nature. And this is an exhibition that's themed around nature and the inspiration of nature, and in turn the inspiration of Monet on contemporaries. So the exhibition, yes, as its centerpiece, has Monet's work, but it also has works that he liked, which would be Japanese works that influenced him, and contemporaries as well. And then significantly too, it's looked at artists representing landscapes in the 20th century. Again, some of them loaned in, including a Roy Lichtenstein piece. The reason that was chosen is that it is a direct version, his version of interpreting the Claude Monet piece. So that's been borrowed.
Is it all big dots now? Is the Lichtenstein all big dots, like it was a cartoon strip?
Well, more than that, actually. There are blotches and bright colours, and you can make out the shape of the bridge, which, of course, significantly in Monet's work, the way that it's so striking is that it just seems to be suspended, because he's cropped it very, very tight.
Well, there's very few colours in Monet's The Water Lily Pond. It's mainly green, as its subtitle green says, and there's little dabs of blue, little dabs of pink, but the rest is gloriously green. So you're right; it's not designed to be seen. You're not looking at it to spot the structure of the bridge. That's not really the point.
No, you're not, exactly. I mean, it's one of those situations where, when, of course, everyone goes to see the Mona Lisa and everyone says, "Oh, that's really small," and no matter how often you sell people in advance, you're going to find that this is a very small picture. It still surprises people. This is kind of medium-sized. I mean, when they had Whistle Jacket there, the wonderful Stubbs painting of the horse from the owner of Wentworth Woodhouse, that had to have the wall reinforced because it's such a big and heavy painting. No way is that this is of a medium size, as it were, and that's in itself it's I suppose sometimes people think, oh, you're expecting something larger. Not the case here. Where there are large works, actually, is that each gallery of the 12 has also commissioned a modern contemporary artist to do an interpretive piece or series of works. In the case of who is doing the new pieces for York Art Gallery, an artist called Michaela.
Charles.
Yeah.
Can I interrupt briefly about this, because you're about to tell me what that's like, which is great. But every time I've seen a piece of modern art from the past, which is a classic, juxtaposed next to new works by a contemporary artist who's not of that caliber, I always am thinking, like, okay, it's all right, but what's the point? Because it's a bit like, if you're going to do like a sort of like room of music, if it was all Beatles tracks apart from some new tracks by a really inferior band, you wouldn't think, wow, that's a great collection of songs. You just say, well, the Beatles tracks are great and the new ones aren't very good at all. So I sometimes think it's a bit of an idea that works better on paper than actually on the wall. You're going to tell me the opposite of this one. Is it going to be good?
But I think that actually Michaela Yearwood-Dan's work stand up to being from our times now. So that if one has this thing that, oh, we need to know the title of a piece, oh, we need to have an explanation about a piece, oh, we need to have more information to take this work seriously. And that happens a lot. Now, interestingly, I think
I
with
never
Michaela's
like
work,
that.
so I'm not going to agree with your point at all, because I actually think otherwise, well, why does anyone do landscapes? But they're the most regularly artistically interpreted creations, landscapes. What do club artists do? Landscapes. So from that point of view, it has to be more than just, oh, here's a landscape. And in Michaela's work, it's about more than that, though you have to work quite hard as a viewer. It doesn't give you everything straight away. And I think that's really significant and important. Now, in Michaela's case, it is her use of words, which we know from Hockney's time in his early career. Words were hugely influential in his artwork early on. They made them more political pieces. They obviously referred to his homosexuality. So you saw more into them than might first have been the case because of the powerful use of words. In Michaela's case, she does the same. She has on each, not on each of them, but most of them, there'll be words. And you'll suddenly come across the words and you think, oh, that's
What
making
sort
me
of
think.
words?
Well, so Be My Protector is a title of one of the pieces. And then you look at a word within it, which is suggesting something more mentally troubling within the piece. So you can look at the piece from a distance. Then you can look at the title. Then you can actually see some words written on the painting. So you are gradually probably taking a different feeling into looking at that painting. And I really like that about it, that it isn't just taken in on one look of the piece, nor is it having a great tranche of information to read. So Michaela is very keen on the fact that people interpret, read the title, do it that way around, read more, and then see, actually, look, Michaela's even written some little notelets on a couple of them, which again, they're like snatches of conversation and snatches of meaning. And it's not that the paintings wouldn't work without them, but they work more so because of it. Now, we then do get into a situation where you look into the reasons behind landscapes work. So Michaela has always loved landscapes. She's always loved flowers. She remembers as a child painting flowers. But she also is now an artist who is a black queer artist, and both those elements come into the work as well. And that's the side that maybe wouldn't necessarily be immediately apparent at first, but then you look for signs of that, and it's there within the work unquestionably. And it means again that it is not just landscape work for no reason at all. It takes on a cultural and social and political significance.
This all sounds great, Charles, but I don't see the link to Monet at all, unless of
so
course,
her first inspiration was Monet.
If the point of the exhibition is to show how landscapes have changed and progressed and evolved since Monet, that makes complete sense. But from what you say, it has no relationship with Monet's paintings, hardly at all.
So that's a slap wrist for me for not making it clear. Her initial inspiration is seasons. Monet painted that particular scene over and over and over and over and over, but we only have the one famous painting from it that we see in York. But he loved the different challenges of painting in the different seasons, and Michaela was drawn to that as well. So within her works, and what you've got 4 large-scale works and then a series of 5 paper works. Now, the 4 large works, spring, summer, autumn, winter. Her favorite seasons, spring and autumn. And when I took a picture of her with me, we stood in front of spring because actually we decided both of us that it was ultimately the favorite season. So she loved the fact that, again, he was influenced by the different seasons. If you think back to the exhibition that ran at the Salts Mill of Hockney's year in Normandy, where you saw the work that was not circular, but it was a sort of oval route, I suppose, that you went round, and it was month by month by month how nature changed in the landscape which he looked out on.
Charles, the link between Hockney and Monet is that Monet's water lilies proper are in the round at Musée de l'Orangerie in Paris. And Hockney's year in Normandy is like obviously partly inspired by the way that Monet's water lilies are hung in Paris.
In some ways, Graham, actually, I think one could see as much of a link in Michaela's work with Hockney's use of colours that, so if you like, exaggerated colours So if you were to go to the Wolds and you think, well, I'm not quite seeing the colours that Hockney did. I'm not saying that he exaggerated them. He brought out something more of the senses. He made colour more than a response to just the colour. It gave off more than that. That sounds very pretentious, and I make no apologies for that. But I think,
well, yeah, look, just like Monet, Hockney's not trying to copy or reproduce what he sees in front of him. No. He's trying to get something else across.
And in Michaela's case, I think it's putting across moods as well. I think that's very much the case that's in there. Also, interestingly, she uses ceramic petals, which is unusual, and she uses beads. So she's using materials that might not be expected to be on a canvas, and they're effective in their own way as well. The other element she was looking at is the derogatory terms that we associate with flowers for describing a man, for example, as a pansy if he's gay. So she's looked at that in her work as well. So that comes through strongly too. So I don't see these as just being landscape works. They are more than that. And that is why, Graham, I think if one was to take the view, it's just landscape works, then I wouldn't necessarily see any point in doing them. But I think there is more to it than that. There's a political element to it that's there, and yet they are beautiful to look at the same time. They have an abstraction about them as well. So it's more than just representing landscape. It is interpretive, which I think is important. I think again it takes it beyond the club painter by doing that.
Yeah, I also think that a landscape painting a work of art which doesn't give you some aesthetic pleasure, it isn't worth doing. If you're going to do a landscape, there has to be some aesthetic pleasure for the viewer.
Yeah, and there is absolutely that in these. I mean, one of the points that was made that you can go to an exhibition sometimes and you'd be entirely in your right to go, I don't like that. It's much more difficult when you go to an exhibition of landscapes not to be drawn into them. And our natural connection with nature and landscape, things of beauty, to be negative about an exhibition is, I think, rather more difficult in those circumstances. You feel joyful as you go around this exhibition. In myriad works, not of course, obviously Monet's work leads you to that feeling, but so does Michaela's works and myriad other pieces within that. And so I like to feel that whenever I go to a gallery, I do want something that's transformative. I want to feel different to how I went in. And I think that's one of the joys of art.
You also want to feel that you've actually got your money's worth, because I know that you have to pay to get in.
Of course, right now at York Art Gallery, with everyone having to pay to go, value for money is unquestionably something that Yorkshiremen like and want and demand. And I think they get, and I absolutely think they get that with this exhibition. I'm not saying they should therefore go out and buy things like, I spotted something that looked like a Christmas tree decoration, which was Monet holding a water lily. And I thought, really, that's maybe not strictly necessary to have. But on the other hand, cash in, you've got to do that. So this exhibition is running for all throughout the summer, running till September the 8th at York Art Gallery, and strongly recommended to come across, as I say, the National Gallery and York Art Gallery pushing this point that 12 galleries taking part, 35 million people are within 35, sorry, half the population are within 35 miles of an exhibition. So please, if you're within 35 miles of York Art Gallery, make that effort to come across to see the Monet exhibition, because it's Monet well spent.
But also, it means that both the Mercer and Harrogate and York Art Gallery have two national exhibitions at the same time, which is pretty damn good.
Well, not only that, Graham, just mention in passing as well, if we may, a third very significant exhibition. So Tony Cragg, born in Liverpool, lives in Wuppertal, I think, in Germany. He's been there since 1977. He went there partly with his sculpture work, but partly as a teacher as well. And for the first time, contemporary artist doing a sculptural exhibition in the grounds and the house at Castle Howard. Nick and Victoria Howard have been absolutely passionate about getting this project on. So there's a combination of works inside the house and outside, some of which are new, some of which are being shown in Britain for the first time, some beautiful glass works as well. And
what sort of work is it?
So
what sort of work is it? What sort of work?
So he will work with actually a lot of different materials. So there'll be fiberglass that he'll work with. He will work with bronze. It's large. A lot of them are large scale pieces. You've got 3, I think, on the north side and 3 on the south side. Forgive me if the figures are wrong. Plus, you've got works that there's one, for example, the reservoir there, the Yearwood Reservoir. There's a plinth, 18th century, part of John Bamborough's original design, which looks all the way opposite to the grand obelisk, and it has never ever, the plinth, had anything resting on it. So for the first time since the 18th century, at last there is a sculpture on there, and that is actually, in its own way, I think it's fascinating to have that. So it's very much using the landscape in ways that we know when we go to Yorkshire Sculpture Park, we see how the sculptures integrate with the landscape. It's an osmosis, the impact of the landscape on the work on the landscape, and very much so this as well, because one of the things that Tony Cragg loves to notice is the changing colors of nature all around. So
are his works beautiful, or are they magnificent, or are they clever, or are they enigmatic, or are they frivolous? What are they like?
I don't think you couldn't say they were frivolous. I do think it's fair to say that they are
playful.
They are playful. Now, one of the reasons that Tony Craggs was chosen is, of course, John Bamborough was not only an architect, of course, playwright, and he made the building of Castle Howard a playful and theatrical building, and the grounds likewise, and the Temple of the Four Winds. So it's absolutely plays to that. It's visually playful and arresting. I love the fact that he uses different colors. So there's sometimes something's bright blue, something's red, something's yellow, something's a myriad of different colors. Then there's the gorgeous silver one that dominates the landscape when you first walk down towards the front of the house. So
yeah,
the great joy with large scale sculptures, as we know from Yorkshire Sculpture Park, is that, well, you've got trees, you've got nature. So do we need sculptures? And actually, as soon as the sculptures are there, they answer that question. They do add to it. They bring something different to it.
Only if they're good, though, because nothing worse than walking half a mile down a hill across the grass and getting to the sculpture and being a bit underwhelmed. It has to have presence.
That sometimes does happen at the sculpture park. There's been the odd occasion where I've not felt connected to an artist's work there, but more often than not, I think the judgment has been that I absolutely have, and that's not just the works, obviously, by Henry Moore's works or whatever, or the Damien Hirst works that are there. I think you would absolutely not feel that these didn't have their place, and the landscapes of Castle Howard, and so I would again recommend it's the exhibition there is part of the entrance fee. It's not an additional cost. It's part of going there.
Yeah, I get it.
And
so you get to see the house as well.
Again, a long run there as well. And so actually, Graham, that's 3 really strong recommendations that we can give at the moment.
Yeah. Well, the idea that art lives in London is just ridiculous anyway. So it's nice the National Gallery is taking great works of art around the country, but the North is already a stronghold of art, and it doesn't need to be. It doesn't really need that much of a helping hand, quite frankly.
No. Now, Graham, we may probably not have time to do your other topic, I think, so we may have to leave that till next week. But forgive. But so a late interruption. Maybe if you've got any thoughts that need to interrupt me with.
I noticed an interesting obituary because there's so many musicians die these days. It's like generation after generation. But Keith LeBlanc has died, and I sort of care about Keith LeBlanc. He was a drummer in the band Tackhead in the 1980s, but he was also a sampling pioneer. I remember going out and buying a 12-inch of No Sellout, which Keith LeBlanc did on Tomboy Records. And basically, he sampled speeches by the 60s revolution leader Malcolm X about civil rights and turned it into a hip-hop track. And I still remember the track to this day, and I've probably not played it for about 10 years. But it's just an amazing track, and he was right out there in like turning rap and hip-hop into something with real meaning in a really intelligent, clever fashion. So I really do mourn the passing of Keith LeBlanc.
American or British?
No, American. When I used to DJ a bit, I've only DJed once in the last 2 years. I used to, when I was DJing with vinyl, I used to play No Sellout, which of course the good burghers of Harrogate, the impoverished town, well known for being multicultural, welcomed with open arms.
Really, Graham? That doesn't sound too convincing.
Well, a few people liked it. That's probably what happened.
Yeah. How old was Keith LeBlanc? Steve Albini was only 61, younger than
I think he
you.
was 70. He reached 70, which still sounds quite young, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I'm not really aware of the oeuvre of Keith LeBlanc. So you've introduced me there to someone I wasn't familiar with.
You need to hear No Sellout, amazing track.
I will listen to No Sellout. Obviously, I've got to go and listen to Paloma Faith instead tonight first, but then I'll make my time to not have a LeBlanc space at that later on tonight.
If you hear No Sellout, if you listen to No Sellout, you can see where Public Enemy got their idea from.
Excellent. Well, good week ahead, Graham, and let's look forward to speaking next weekend. And a couple of weeks' time, we hope to speak to the blues musician Chantel McGregor, which would be wonderful if that can happen.
You've been listening to the podcast Two Big Egos in a Small Car. Your hosts were Graham Chalmers and Charles Hutchinson. This was a Baltic sub-production.